Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Jim Fight, Dave Patterson, and Graham Noble. And this is the Conservative 5, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. China is not our friend, but the Biden administration seems to be courting the Red Menace with an elaborate prom proposal. Several U.S. states have taken the lead in legislation prohibiting foreign purchases of farmland. Congress has seemingly done little. Just when you think we've seen it all, then Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm visits China and sold a big heap of our strategic petroleum reserves for good measure. Dave Patterson, your recent article for Liberty Nation was chilling. Care to spook our audience a bit further?
Well, I think, Sarah, that the audience should be concerned. That you have a energy secretary who goes or talks with Chinese to get advice on how we should manage our strategic petroleum reserve. And within a few short months, the Biden administration depletes our strategic petroleum reserve and sells millions of barrels to China. This just doesn't set well in terms of, the smell factor. But more importantly, I think you've hit upon something that needs to be addressed, and that is that the American people have been extremely naive as China continues to intrude into the daily life of all Americans. And we have a Biden administration that gives new meaning to the term feckless. You had Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, when he went to China, assuring his Chinese counterparts that the United States is not seeking an economic advantage. That was echoed again by the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, who said precisely the same thing. That is total hogwash. We want an economic advantage. You don't go on a football field and say, oh, listen, we don't want an advantage here so that we can win. Absolutely not. The United States and the American people want an economic advantage. To not have it will put the U.S. in extremis in terms of financial dealings with the world, which Andrew can speak to, but more importantly, our economic prowess generally.
Well, let's, before we pivot to Andrew, let's head over into Jim Fight, who I'm sure has strong opinions on the presence of China in the U.S.
Yeah, that's another angle of this story, right? So China's buying up all this land around U.S. military bases and just the U.S. in general. That if that doesn't freak you out, then I don't know what to say. That's pretty scary. But you made the point. China's not our friend, and that's true, generally speaking, for the American public. But you have to ask the question: well, what about the Biden administration? Maybe China is their friend. There's only two reasons that you behave towards China the way Biden has that I can think of. And I'm not going to lay blame. I'm just going to
like he profits from it.
No. I'm not going to lay blame. I'm just going to lay him out there. You pick the one. You pick the one that you like best, Sarah. Either it's appeasement because he thinks that this is actually going to get something good for the U.S. We see this in the way Obama and Biden have dealt with some terrorists. This false idea that, well, if you appease them, then they'll be our friends, and that's just not how it works. But the other option is that, maybe the palms are a little bit too greasy. There's just too much money in selling out America to China. But again, I lay no blame. I lay no accusation. Those are the options. Pick one.
Here's the optics of the situation. Graham, what do you think?
Well, what the US should have done starting a couple of decades ago, at least that far back anyway, is we should have started completely kind of disengaging ourselves from China altogether in every way. In trade, financially, diplomatically, in every single way. It's not okay, we can say you can make this statement, China is not our friend, but that's that's putting it mildly. I mean, that's really the understatement of the century. Then it's not just they're not our friends; they are our mortal enemy. They are China. China represents an existential threat to the United States as a sovereign country, and there is nothing that the Chinese do that contains any good intention whatsoever towards the United States, or for that matter, towards any other country on the planet. And we should have stopped buying their cheap crap years ago, because we have fed their economy, and we could have defeated China many years ago economically by simply not buying all the stuff that's made there, and by telling American companies, if you're going to be over there manufacturing your stuff in China, well, guess what? We're not going to allow you to import it back into the United States. It just boggles the mind. And of course, it's all about money. I mean, and the Bidens are in the pockets of the Chinese, or maybe the Chinese are in Biden's pocket, one way or the other. But his family, we know that. Hunter Biden himself admitted how much money he's made from China, even after Joe Biden famously said, the only person who's ever made any money out of China is this guy, and he was referring to Donald Trump. But of course, we now know that was a lie. The Biden family.
I thought you were gonna quote him on the "I haven't received a single penny from China," and I was gonna say that's not inaccurate. He didn't receive a single penny. Received millions of dollars at least.
Right, that's right. Yeah, but so it's all about the money. But I mean, look, at what point? Honestly, at what point do you put the money above? You'll sell out your own country just for a few $1,000,000. I mean, really, it just blows me away that we are even still kind of keeping up this ridiculous charade that we are somehow on friendly terms with the Chinese. I mean, we're absolutely not. We are in a Cold War with China right now, and we have been for quite a while. And that Cold War is getting less and less cold all the time. And they are. The nice thing is that the capabilities, and I believe that Dave would probably agree with me on this, and that is that we are still currently, thankfully, at the point where the technological capabilities and the sheer war-fighting power of the Chinese military is not up to US standards. But how long is that going to go on? How long will it be until the Chinese actually get to the point where they are militarily superior to the US? And once they are, I don't think they're going to hang around very long and just play nice. I mean, the only reason why they've been playing nice with us up until now is because the United States, the US, the American consumer feeds the Chinese economy. And of course, and then they steal all our intellectual property, and they've been playing nice while they're catching up to us. But at the point where they surpass us, all bets are off. And I don't even want to think about what happens after that.
Hey, Andrew, Graham mentioned something that I think you can answer better than anybody at the moment. He said that the United States, we're the consumer that keeps, buying the trinkets and trash. But we can't be the only country that has been, bamboozled into believing that it's cheaper and better to get it from China than our own manufacturers.
Well, I'm not going to economics of that because I slightly disagree with that point. But you guys, all of you said many things I need to touch upon. So I'm going to touch on Graham's first point. One is that it's not so much that the U.S. is disengaging with China, is that China is the one that's disengaging with the U.S. economically. If you look at some of the data coming out of China, from the General Administration of Customs, if you look at some of the exports, they're exporting more now to the regional ASEAN countries, the regional countries in Asia. They're exporting more there. You look at the Belt and Road Initiative. They had their tentacles everywhere in South America, Europe, Africa, all those different places. When it comes to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the idea behind that was, and I disagree with that, of course, but the idea behind that was that they wanted to keep an open dialogue with China, so China would be buying less from Russia, or at least reducing it somewhat from Russia, and not propping up the economy. Another issue is that if you look at a recent study by the Joint Economic Committee, the congressional study found that the Inflation Reduction Act and other Biden policies, they're actually benefiting Chinese companies with U.S. taxpayer dollars. So I find that comical. Now there's other issues too to discuss upon. So one of them is that China holds the second largest amount of U.S. treasuries or U.S. government debt, although that's been on the decline in the last year. So perhaps the administration is so desperate for China to prop up the U.S. debt market that they just want to, hey, please, we'll do anything, just buy our debt. Second, China's home to some of the world's largest brands now, like Nike and J.P. Morgan Chase. You remove that market for these companies, there's going to be a backfire among the corporate America. Lastly, maybe Dave can touch upon this, but maybe all of this, saying that the U.S. on economic threats or discussing public policy, perhaps this could be a desperate plea to not invade Taiwan. Because, of course, if China were to invade Taiwan, goodbye semiconductors, hello, a huge wave of inflation, and brace for a supply chain fiasco. So I touched upon all of that stuff. I hope I did. And so I will.
Yeah, it's on the table. I mean, come on, Dave. He called you out personally.
Right. So Andrew's absolutely right. But I would look at another dimension of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve drawdown in 2021, and that is that it was purely political. The gas prices were rising at a rather steep trend, and people were really upset. And you found little icons on your gas pump that said, with Biden, that said, "I did this," at an extraordinarily high price for gas, and he wanted to do something that would be visible that he was trying to get the gas prices down. So he sold off the largest sell-off of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in history up to that point, just to drive the price of gas down. He said that. So did Granholm. So it's not like a secret of what their purpose was. But I would take this a little bit further. It's not just the United States that's held hostage to China and the Chinese Communist Party. I still absolutely have no earthly clue as to why the World Trade Organization considers China a developing country and gives it all of the privileges of Niger. I mean, that is absolutely absurd. It is not a developing country. Perhaps, Andrew, you have an answer, but it's crazy.
Andrew's chomping at the bit.
Yeah, there's so much I want to touch upon here on what Dave's talking about. So for the official reason I would say official, but from a lot of economists and market analysts I've spoken to and political experts, the reason behind that is because they're trying to push China to lower its interest rates on and restructure its debt deals with a lot of poor countries that have borrowed from China. So a lot of Northern African countries, Middle Eastern countries, they've borrowed so much from China over the years as part of that Belt and Road Initiative. If you look at some of the numbers, their average interest rate for a Chinese loan to these countries is about 5%. One from the international community, like the IMF, is about 2.5%. When it comes to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, Dave's right. I mean, look at the numbers. It's down from, I think, 40% from when Biden took office. But good news, it rose 995,000 barrels in the previous week, according to the EIA, which is a 5-week high. So yay on that part. But one thing too, China is preparing for something. Its economy is not performing as many as hoped in the post-pandemic environment, but it's preparing for something. It's been stockpiling oil. Last month, 17% increase in oil imports. It's been stockpiling gold. It's been one of the biggest. The central bank has been one of the biggest buyers this year and over the last 12 months. And it's been scooping up so many agricultural commodities like soybeans. So perhaps we can get a whole other discussion on this, but obviously they're getting ready for something, because if your economy is doing that poorly and you're spending, a higher price for Urals, which is the Russian oil, you must be getting ready for something. And I've read about gold. One of the reasons why they've been buying up gold is because they want to circumvent any apparent Western-led sanctions should they invade Taiwan. So there's a lot of things you have to be watching out when it comes to China, particularly on the economic front.
Well, the consequence.
I don't want to dominate the whole conversation.
The consequence, Andrew, of the Bidenomics, which I believe you coined, as opposed to them. But the consequence of the oil transaction was that once again, Biden has captured what I think is absolutely axiomatic. You always buy high, sell low.
Well, if you look at during the Trump administration, Trump during the pandemic when oil prices were crashing to, I think it was negative territory of the February futures contract at the time. He wanted to buy oil when it was at $20 a barrel. But the Democrats, they complained saying, oh, you're trying to bail out big oil or trying to bail out your friends. But it's absolutely ridiculous because imagine the emergency stockpiles he would have accumulated at that time for just $20. And now, that filling up, that replenishing of nearly 1 million barrels, he's spending it at what, $80 a barrel? So it's terrible Bidenomics management. It's really frustrating to watch.
When he sold it for somewhere around 50 to 60, right?
Yes, and also one more thing too. You were talking about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. If you look at and its effect on gas prices, if you look at a recent White House report, it actually said that reduction in the emergency stockpiles, or SPR, only supported about 30% of the reduction in gasoline prices. Why? Because gasoline prices are mainly affected by global petroleum markets. This idea that big oil is the cause of the rising gas prices was absurd reasoning, and that's still the official line coming out of the White House. This whole greedflation nonsense. So the oil markets, and you can go on and on about what's been going on and how Biden was one of the biggest contributors to that significant $5 jump in gasoline costs.
You got to be careful coining these new terms, Andrew. The Biden White House going to steal some more from you.
Boys, I think we can go on about this for hours and hours and hours, but we got to cut this down. So, we've had our suspicions on the cozy affair between Biden and China, and this latest act should make even the Democrats sit up and take notice, and I'm talking about the congressional ones. So thanks for watching, and thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. I'm Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today. Free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.